Hi friends, Taylor from Doom to Fail. Today we are re-releasing episode 11, part 1 on Tulipmania. It was a time in the Netherlands in the 1600s when people just went like out of their minds for tulips. And it wasn't even like the real flower, it was the bulb and the promise of the flower that it might deliver and the value of that flower in the future. So, super interesting. People lost their homes. They lost all of their money on this like tulip bubble that happened and burst pretty quickly. So, hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, any ideas, if you like us, please tell Apple Podcasts. And we are at doomtofail@gmail.com and doomtofail at all the socials. Enjoy this re-release.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Okay, so we're recording, and I don't remember. Actually, let's do the intro first.
Okay.
What do I
you do
say?
it?
Yeah.
Welcome to Doom to Fail.
That's right.
Fars.
Welcome to Doom to Fail. I'm Fars, joined here with my co-host Taylor, and every week we bring you a true crime and a historical story about relationships that were doomed to fail. Taylor, how you doing today?
I'm good. I told you a second ago, I'm on vacation. I'm in a gorgeous like mansion Airbnb in Temecula, California. It's raining, but it's a beautiful house, so it's fun. I just made
Did you,
breakfast for a bunch of people and came up here.
did you rent the whole house?
Yeah.
Nice. That's the way to
There's
do it.
I mean, we used to be just adults and now we're 6 adults and 6 kids. So there's a lot going on.
It is a full house. Thanks for taking the
Yes.
time to actually do this and record
Yes.
today.
You got it.
Here in Austin, it is South by Southwest starts now. And
Ooh.
so I'm doing everything in my power to avoid downtown and anything
Like
related
an
to
Austin
downtown.
native. Good job.
Yeah, I would assume
Yeah.
that's typical or
Yeah.
standard. So I don't remember who goes first this week.
I think I do.
You go first? Okay. Do you have a drink in
Yeah.
mind?
I do. Do you want to do yours first and then I'll go into mine?
I'm gonna
Or,
Google my drink right now because I totally forgot to come up with the drink.
okay, I'll tell you mine.
Okay.
Mine is a Heineken, which is a beer from Holland. Did you watch Mad Men?
No, I did not.
Oh, there's like a thing in a Mad Men where the Don Draper is like obviously an advertising guy, and they do this thing where they are trying to get people to buy Heineken, and so they put it in like grocery stores and they make the end cap, like the end of the display, like a big like a windmill and stuff to be like, oh, it's from Holland. And then he has all of his like work friends over and his wife is like, oh, I got this beer. It's called Heineken. It's from Holland. And all of the advertising guys are like, yeah, like we got her. Like it worked. And then she was really pissed because she was like, you set me up to find this beer in the store and like fall for your ad. Anyway, I'm going to
Are we
Holland,
covering
so
are we covering Mad Men today?
no, but I always think about that. Someone will know. You know, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
Mhm.
Awesome.
What's your
I didn't think of a drink, but I think given the location of my story, it needs to be coffee. And
I'm
also,
drinking coffee
yeah,
right now.
yeah, I was drinking coffee too, and also it's
Woo.
the morning here, so it makes sense. It all tracks. And sorry, you said you're the one who goes first this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the other day when I have like 17 tangents, but when you did the toolbox killers, you were like, oh, maybe I'm going to do friends, not just romantic relationships. And I was like, that's a great idea. Because I don't think I can sustain this for like years with just like romantic relationships of history. And I'm like trying to find ones, and like my cousin just sent me one and all these things. But I'm also thinking, like, what about like other things that were failures, like other like crazy times in history that maybe don't have like specific people involved, but they were like a crazy thing. So that's kind of what I'm going into today. I also was like, so here's a little bit of backstory. Once upon a time in 2016, I was looking at my Kindle and I found this book that I don't remember how it got there. Like, I don't remember downloading it, but it is called, I'm gonna make my screen. It's called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it was written in 1841 by a Scottish journalist named Charles Mackay. And it's like stories of people who are like kind of like doing crazy things and like more people are doing it together. And so like I don't know how I got it on my Kindle, but I think that I probably downloaded it when because it was 2016, so I was like mad that people were like falling for Donald Trump, and I was like, what is wrong with people? You know? That's why I think I got it, if that makes sense.
The through line is there. I understand that.
Did you have a big cow skull on your wall now? Is that new?
So I had it in my other. I had it
I'm
up
gonna screenshot this.
at the other house, and it was actually sitting on the ground here since I moved into this house, and I finally decided to put it up.
It's very Texas. I like it. I did a screenshot. Wait, smile. I'm gonna do another one. Keep this in. Perfect. It's just you. Okay, great. I just saw it. It looks great. So this is like what I'm thinking about. Like what this book is about. So this book is divided into three parts. There's national delusions, which are like rumors, myths, and legends. Like the Crusades is like one of the examples in that one. Then there's peculiar follies, like alchemists and spiritualists. There's a chapter called Haunted Houses about like people falling for like seances and things like that that we talked about before. And there's another chapter on philosophical delusions, like people who think the world is flat, which has like always been a problem, which is hilarious. So a lot of the stuff that like we'll talk about today is stuff that we see constantly, like even now.
So this book is basically just a discussion of different variations of delusions and where they
Yes.
originate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds awesome. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's really fun. So it's a delight. So today we're going to talk about tulips, the flower, and specifically Tulipmania in Holland in 1636 and 1637. Have you heard about this?
No.
Okay, great. So it's like it's a fun thing. I was like, I'm gonna do something really easy this week because I'm going on vacation. And then all of a sudden I'm like learning about botany and economics, but whatever. So here we are. So I watched a documentary called The Tulip Bubble. I read a book called Tulipomania, like another book about it. The book is very dry. There's a lot of like numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about conversion, but they use guilders as like their money that they're using at this time. So there I have a list of kind of like some conversions that we'll talk about in a little bit. So can you picture a tulip? What is a tulip?
It's probably the most generic looking flower outside of a rose, right?
That's fair. Like a bulb on top of a stem. It actually that like it comes from like kind of like the seed. It looks like an onion. So it's like a big bulb. You plant it and then the flower grows out of it. And the flower itself only lasts for a few months and then you like cultivate the bulb and you do it again. Right now, 80% of the world's tulips come from the Netherlands, and the actual flower is grown in these like really beautiful tulip fields where there's like lines of different color tulips. It's really nice. And then, but really they want the bulbs. So the bulbs they can like send all over the world. And it's like mother and daughter bulbs, where some of them will grow new flowers, some of them won't. Whatever, there's like ways to put things together to make a tulip. So we're in Holland in the 1600s, and the economy is booming, like more than other parts of Europe, because there have just been a bunch of wars over there. But in Holland, they kind of avoided those wars. So they're not ruled by a royalty. They're ruled by citizen councils, which gives people a lot of autonomy and like the ability to like move up in society. And this creates a middle class for the first time ever. So for the first time ever, people have money and they don't have like a way to invest it because there isn't like a really like solid banking system. There isn't really a solid stock market. You can't really get in unless you are like uber rich, but the middle class are looking for ways to like invest their money. And this story is like you could just plop it over any time period and find a story that's like very similar to this of just like people trying to get rich quick, you know?
Yeah. It actually reminds me of the most recent last podcast episode of the Essex about how that's how you invested. You just bought into a whaling ship, and that was the stock market back then.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You could like buy a boat or like, buy more land, but you didn't like weren't able to like do like money things just
Yeah.
with just money. Exactly. So there's also the Dutch East India Company that's trading and making the country really rich. They also are enslavers, are enslaving a lot of people, but they're getting a lot of money from that. There's also like some of the best painters coming from this time, like the girl with the pearl earring, that Vermeer that I'm sure you've seen, and Rembrandt. It's like a golden age of like art and things. And so people started to think like, as they got more money, like what can I do to like both like glorify God and show, that I have all this money. So they started building gardens. And they, didn't want to like cover themselves in gold, so they would build these really big gardens. So,
Sorry, so that was the way to reflect that you were wealthy?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So to do a little bit of conversion, and I'll come back to this, like if I was going to buy, I guess this is I have a hilarious table, but 8 fat pigs are 240 guilders. 4 fat oxen are 480 guilders. So like, and you could buy a ship for 500 guilders. So like this is like how much start thinking about that money conversion. And I'll come back to that. But like
Okay, you said ship last. Okay, so that's 500 guilders. Well, how much was what was the other one?
8 fat pigs were 240 guilders.
Wow, a ship's kind of a bargain then.
It is kind of a bargain.
Okay.
I don't know what kind. A silver drinking cup is 60 guilders. So people start, so that's like as people are paying for things. So that's Holland. That's where we are at this time period. People are starting to have more money for the first time. And that's where the tulip starts to kind of be introduced into popular culture. Tulips actually come from Central Asia and Persia. Kazakhstan has a lot of the native tulips in nature. They're shorter and they're really good in like colder weather. So they work in places that like high up in the mountains and they don't need a lot of like sunlight. Right now, it's also a time, it's like a Renaissance time. So people are starting to get interested in science. They're like dissecting bodies for the first time and, doing that like in public and like learning more about anatomy and learning about botany really for the first time. They haven't really like made it a science yet. And I say first time like in this time period. I'm sure that like ancient people thought about botany in different ways and people don't know, but in this period. So there's a botanist named Carolus Clusius, Carolus Clusius, and he's like one of the first people to be a botanist and to bring the tulip into the Netherlands. He's never makes a lot of money, but his friends like take care of him, and he ends up getting a job at the University of Leiden and starting this first like botany school. And he started breeding them, and to breed them, I think you have to move the pollen of one to another one, and then like a male and a female, but like put their pollen together in a way that's like unexpected, and that can make like a different color tulip, I think.
That sounded very scientific.
Doesn't it sound scientific? In the documentary I watched, someone had a Q-tip of pollen and was like putting it on like the stem, like the steam. I don't know. Anyway, he started breeding them, which made different colors of tulips for the first time. They were like really pretty and they have like cool stripes and stuff. So, right, the tulips during the tulip craze that everybody wanted were white with these like really dark red stripes going up them. And I'll share pictures of them. Like they're really beautiful, but it's actually a virus that makes them that color. But they just didn't know anything about viruses.
I actually thought that tulips were always one color. I didn't know that you could get. I'm gonna look up pictures of tulips now.
Yeah, it's like a red and white striped one.
This is the silent portion of the podcast.
This is the visual portion.
Wow, those are really cool looking. They look like marbles almost.
Yeah, they're really pretty. But it's a virus that makes them that color, so it's hard to predict. And tulip bulbs all look like onions, so it's hard to really tell what's going to happen when you have the bulb and what kind of flower it's going to actually turn into.
See, this is why I can't get into gardening because I don't have the patience for this. Like, you
Yeah.
you get the bulbs, you plant them, you wait months and months for them to actually grow into the thing. Then you can cross pollinate them, and you don't know what you're doing. And maybe, actually, hold on, wait a minute. Like, so if you cross pollinate, okay, so well, hold on. So like, there
Oh my
is
God.
no, there's no, there's no eggs. So like, what do you get?
No, okay, exactly. So that's a good question. Good question. So what you get is after the flower dies, you dig up the root, and the root is a new bulb. So that bulb you can like continue to like plant, but if you put like the new pollen in it, it will change like the anatomy of that bulb. I have no idea. Does that sound like that could be true? I feel like I don't know.
I mean, if you
There's no
say
botanist.
anything with confidence, it's people are gonna
Yeah.
believe you. But like, I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds like. So hold on. So okay, so you do this weird plant sex thing, and then in theory, that generates this bulb
hmm
that only is produced after the death of the female
Yes.
flower. Okay.
Yes. Yes. It's sort of like if you were it is sort of like an onion if it had a flower at the top of it. You know, like you have like you like
Well,
plant
that
an onion and you
concept,
get like the thing.
yeah, that concept I'm familiar with. It's just like it never dawned on me like what is the actual reproductive component of all this. Well, so yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that I guess yeah, you get a bulb. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So some people were trying to like make their tulips different colors. They didn't understand really how it happened, so they would like dissect them and try to splice the bulbs together. They would soak them in red wine, you know, like trying to figure out how to do it. All good ideas, but it ended up being something kind of super unpredictable. Because they're pretty and they're rare, they start to get more expensive, you know, like anything. And there's some fun stories about like, and they may or may not be true, but of like someone going to someone's house and like seeing a tulip bulb and thinking it's an onion and eating it. And then like the guy's like, that was so expensive. And then like, you know, someone else like dissecting it because they're like, what is this interesting onion? And then the person being like, I can't believe you would do this, and like sending them to jail. Like people are
Yeah,
really freaking out about it.
there's a lot of
Um,
Kramer-esque antics that were going on with tulip
exactly.
bulbs.
Exactly. So then this is where it starts to get like in like economics. So in this time, there's also a lot of like gambling happening in pubs. I don't know, like always. And they describe these pubs, and in the documentary that I watched, they do a great like reenactment of the pub because you can imagine people like the men have like those big frilly collars, you know, that like, go out like 6 inches like around their necks, and like, you know, big like fun outfits on, and everyone smokes constantly, and they think like it's also like there's like the plague sometimes during this time, so they think that smoking will keep you healthy from that, and they smoke in these like really cool long, like I'm show you like a long white pipe. So you're in this pub, there's a lot of gambling, everyone's a little bit drunk, everyone's smoking, you can't really see across the room because it's full of smoke, also like from like the fireplaces and everything. People start to trade tulip bulbs in these pubs, like in the back rooms. And so they weighed them like you would weigh gold. And they used like the measurement for weighing gold, an ace, to weigh the tulip bulbs. And I don't even know if the weight of the tulip bulb has any effect on the flower itself, but that's like how they were selling them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense. You break anything down into like that's how you the unit of measurement, like it's the weight. How
Yeah.
much is the weight? It's that this much caviar, this much gold.
Yeah, exactly. So they had obviously since, you know, it was a long time ago, they had like chalkboards. Everybody would have like a little chalkboard. And the person selling the tulip bulb would put down what they would accept as a bid and give it to like the guy in charge. Then the guy in charge would collect little chalkboards from every person, and every person's bid would be on there. And then he would find like the bid that made the most sense, show it to the seller, and the seller would either agree or disagree, and then that was how it would get sold. So people were just kind of following along. You could trade and sell the same bulb like several times in a night, you know, just like have like the value kept increasing because people were willing to buy it. And it started to turn into something like an NFT because it didn't exist. Like you would be trading a bulb that didn't for a flower that doesn't exist. So the tulip isn't really the thing anymore. People don't really care about the flower, they care about the value of the bulb. Some of the like really pretty ones and like most famous ones may never have even existed because they had like these beautiful books that they would get and see all these paintings of these different tulips, but no one had ever like seen it, and you couldn't guarantee anything anyway. But they would be like, oh, this bulb is going to be this beautiful tulip, and just like that value is based on that assumption that may or may not have been true, but it didn't really matter.
I mean, were these things getting planted?
Not even really, because this happened in like a year, and it takes a year for this whole thing to happen anyway. So what it turned into is a futures market, and now I'm like, oh God, now I'm trading on futures. Like, oh my God, this is a smidge over my head. But I need to
The,
call my dad because he used to be a commodities broker in Chicago, so he would totally understand this.
the fact that you just called out like NFTs, like the hair just stood on the back of my neck.
I know. Ugh. Trading in futures is buying something, is having the right to buy something at a certain time in the future at a certain price. Now you have ownership of something that doesn't exist yet, but you're saying when it exists, I'm going to pay this much money. So you can make a lot of money if you say like I'm going to pay for, you know, $300 for this in 6 months. And if in 6 months it's worth $600, you just made $300. So there's like but it's a gamble. So they're trading it again and again and again before the tulip bulb even exists. Sometimes it hasn't even come out of the ground yet. And they're saying like, I own this tulip bulb, and they have this little piece of paper and they're trading it back and forth. So you're able to like agree that the price is going to be this much in the future. So people just kept trading and trading, and it gave people the ability to make a lot of money really quickly.
Makes sense.
That make sense? And as you know, everyone loves a get rich quick scheme. So everyone started to get involved in it. So a ton of people like sold their houses, sold all their stuff to get into this tulip market because with the assumption that it would never go down.
So
Like
Taylor, one thing I'm confused of, was this literally the only access point for building wealth at the time?
it wasn't like the only one, but and like this whole thing only happens over a few months. So I think it was like a exciting quick one that was like on the news. Not on the news, obviously, but like people were talking
People
about
paid
it.
attention
So
to, yeah.
yeah,
This was the GameStop of their generation.
exactly.
Okay.
You can put it over so many things that are happening today and be like, oh, like that was valued at this and now it's valued at nothing, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So people were buying them at 10% of the future price. So if I pay $10 for a future price of $90, I sell it for $200, I made $100, all those things. So at the height of the craze, some tulip bulbs were selling for more than 10 times the annual income of a skilled craftsman. That's like, how I said like a boat was like 500 guilders, they would sell for like 10,000 guilders for a tulip bulb that like didn't exist, with the assumption that the price would continue to go up.
I know that hindsight is 2020. This is really stupid though.
I know. But it's just the stock market. It's just like the same thing. You like assume something's going to have value and continue to go up.
No, it's not like that because the thing that you are investing in can generate money. This is a bulb for a tulip that can't generate anything but a singular tulip.
But they assume that the value of that tulip is going to go up and up. But to
Or
your
maybe,
point, no one
but
ever gets a tulip.
well, okay. So like maybe if the theory was if this is the market, I can get a second mortgage on my house, buy two really pretty, I assume, tulips that'll generate a very pretty. But then you paid for the two tulips. Whatever. I'm not gonna ascribe logic to this.
No one ever really got a tulip. It was all just speculation. Because it was all like, I assume that this tulip is going to keep rising. So people keep buying it and then assuming that they'll always have a buyer. So,
So no, okay,
you know what I mean?
yes, people do crazy shit. Okay, we'll just leave it at
Yes.
that.
Okay, there's a story of a man named Wouter Winkle who died and left his children a bunch of tulip bulbs, like actual tulip bulbs that sold to go into the market, and his kids made 90,000 guilders, which is like enough money to be billionaires. They were like the richest people in town. And then at the height of the tulip mania, people are, selling their things, putting all their money into tulips, assuming that this will never ever go down. People just stop bidding on them. And as soon as the prices stop going up, people freak out and sell them, and that is a bubble. So it's just like the housing bubble, just like the tech bubble. It's, valued and valued and valued until it's not, and then everybody panic sells. And so people are ruined because they lost all of their money and they cannot sell these tulip bulbs to anyone, and they can't get their money back because they had done that like promise the person they bought it from.
This feels like when I bought Tesla stock, like literally right before Elon Musk put a bid out on Twitter, and when we all realized that he lost his mind, I was like, oh no, this is awful. Everything just
No.
tanked.
Exactly. So on February 24th, 1637, the Dutch Florists Guild, because also like the government wasn't really involved in this. It was like people in like back rooms of pubs and like florists and things. They had to intercede and save some people because basically they had to do bailouts because people were like lost all their money. So they made some rules that like contracts after a certain time were null and void. You could get a certain percentage back and get like a certain percentage of the contract price back. But other than that, like people sort of moved on after it. But it was like it's like a documented time of people kind of going crazy over a thing, learning about trading, learning about futures, trying to figure out like how they can make the most money with the assumption that things will never ever stop being expensive, and then that bubble bursting and people's lives being ruined in like a very short period of time.
Yeah, it makes sense. Taylor, did you do this because of Silicon Valley Bank?
No, that happened yesterday, but
That's weird
it's
timing.
still happening. I know. No, totally. Like having a run on the bank is the same as having like some people stop bidding on tulips. It's yeah, it's I think it's I mean, I'm terrible at economics. I've taken a lot of economics classes and like it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. But like when you see things like this, you're like, oh, this is the same thing that has happened forever. Whether it's like now with my, virtual money in a bank or then with all my like little pieces of paper saying I own tulips that don't exist yet.
You know what? I also did this with Bitcoin. I also bought Bitcoin at the highest. I literally only buy high and sell low. That's the
That is
only
the
way I
opposite of what you're
invest.
supposed to do.
I know, I know. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
That's really
Um,
cool. So, question:
yeah.
why was it tulips and not like roses or whatever?
A good question. I think it was just because they were like new and they were like rare because they take a while to cultivate. They take that like full year cycle. So you can be like, oh, I have it for, a little bit of time and then um you have to like take the bulb out, take good care of it over the winter and then like replant it in the spring. So I think it was just because they have like that like long life cycle and they were new and they were getting these like beautiful varieties because of a virus like that they couldn't control. They didn't really understand it, but still they were like seeing that. So I think that was part of it. It was, kind of it's like exciting new thing. Yeah, because I already had roses. So
It wasn't.
they
It
did
wasn't
the
cool.
tulip.
You know, the
Yeah.
other weird synchronicity here, Taylor, is after I finish or we finish recording this, I'm gonna go to Home Depot and buy a bunch of plants because I realize I need to like start taking care of like the garden space near the house.
Nice.
And
Well,
yeah,
now is the time to buy tulip because they're also a very Easter flower.
it's true. Yeah.
So you'll have them out for Easter. And then also nowadays, because of like science and technology and everything, like you don't have to wait that long. You can buy tulips anytime. Like they've like modified them to be able to like, grow at different times and they're a lot more like, you can use them a lot differently than it wasn't like back then where you had to like really have to wait.
So in this case, is there a doomed to fail premise, or were we just completely abandoning the red flag part of
No,
this?
I am. No, I think it's a group failure. That's what I think it really is because I think well, like the book, the memoirs of extraordinary popular delusions. It's like people together making a decision to do something that is in hindsight kind of crazy. That
Sorry, would this be a classification of folie à deux? A doe?
No, I do know because it's more than just two people. Like folly do is like if like you and I are like locked in a house together and I convince you that someone's trying to kill us, so we kill each other. Like that's folly do, but it's like a group delusion, where people are like, I have all this stuff, like I have all this, these pieces of paper that say on this thing that's going to increase in value, and then you're like, oh my God, I want it, I'll pay you more, and then I pay it to you, and like people just kept doing it assuming that like the price would always go up. So I think it's a failure, it's a group failure. And I think it's one of those things that afterwards they were like embarrassed.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
oh, we went a little nuts with the tulip thing. And then they're like, some people have like lost a lot of stuff. Some people lost a lot of money, but they were already rich. So they were like, meh. But also like with the GameStop thing, then like the poorer people, the people who have the least amount of money do have the most to lose because they are, investing in something at like with more money than they might have. You know what I
Hey,
mean?
did you watch the GameStop documentary on Netflix?
No, I didn't.
These
I
people
should have.
made so much money. They made
Wow.
they made like retirement, like 20-year-olds were making like retirement money. What I forgot, one guy put like 50K in or something and cash out 8 million. It was unbelievable.
And there's yeah,
And
and that's like the people who cashed out get it, and then some people didn't and lost everything, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thanks for sharing that, Taylor. I'm gonna look at tulips
Yeah,
when I go to Home Depot, and
you
I'm
should.
probably gonna plant them because I'm lazy and I just need something that's gonna keep coming back year over year. And tulips don't sound like they're gonna
Yeah.
come back year over year.
No, I really don't. I feel like that's too much. The idea of like having to plant the same flower every year because it doesn't come back, that feels exhausting.
Yeah.
Like marigolds. But
So, okay, well, I'll make the transition over to the ever shifting premise of the show, which